Hey everybody, Nick here, and today I got a review for you of a very interesting little multi-tool, and that's this little guy right here, the SOG Switchplier. The reason it's called that is because of this little switch right here. When you press this switch, bam, pliers. Kind of entertaining in that way. I might want to thank my buddy Jim for sending this guy along for review. It's a very interesting little tool, and I wouldn't have gotten to handle one otherwise. Let's do a quick size comparison. First off, for tradition's sake, with the Spyderco Delica pocket knife here. But then we could also compare it to, say, Leatherman Juice CS4. So you can see here that the whole overall size is roughly similar, although the Juice is a little more compact. Here's the Leatherman Squirt P4. Note the aftermarket scales there, and then finally, this is the Leatherman Wave multi-tool. So you can see here that the jaws on the pliers are a good deal larger on the Wave, but nonetheless, it still works. And let's do a quick little tool tour. Obviously, you've got some pliers going on here, but underneath, you've got a whole bunch of other stuff going. You've got a file here. You've got a tool of some variety. Not quite sure what it is, maybe an awl. You've got yourself a bottle opener, a can opener. You've got yourself a cap lifter, although they claim that the pliers are the cap lifter, which is weird to me. You got yourself a knife with some serrations on there. You got yourself a pry bar / flathead driver. And then you got yourself a Phillips head driver overall. So there you go. That is the tools on this guy. And let's go on ahead and jump into the good, the great, the bad, and the ugly of this particular multi-tool. So on the good side, first off, it does come out of the box with a pocket clip on it. So that means you can clip this guy into your pocket, and it hangs just nicely. And I gotta say, it does hang fairly nicely. It stays relatively out of the way. It feels like any other pocket knife. I mean, to give you a sense of the relative size relative to an actual pocket knife, here you are looking at something maybe a little bit even smaller than the Ontario Rat No. 1, which is a great pocket knife, and definitely smaller, pardon me, just hit my little plastic light thing, definitely smaller than the Spyderco PM2. So, there you go. This guy is a, well, it's a very carryable tool, so I like that. Next thing, I noticed on their website that they actually sell parts for it. Which means that if for whatever reason, you know, in the course of opening cans or something like that, you damage your can opener, you can buy a new one and then just replace it by unscrewing this, looks like Allen key bit and dropping the new tool in there. That's kind of a beautiful thing, and it prevents you from having to buy a new tool just because one of the little parts broke off. So that's nice. It does have a pretty decent complement of tools, I'll say that much. The fact that it's got this full-size Phillips head driver is beautiful. Very often you get like the half Phillips, and those don't tend to be super satisfying. You also get a nice pry bar tip on the end of your file, which I appreciate very much. Those can be very useful. It's not particularly thin on the top there. I'd like to almost see that a little thinner, but hey, it does the trick. And all of the tools are actually locking. It's got this little mechanism on the back with these little lifty springs that when they fall back into place means that these tools are really locked shut. And so in order to disengage the knife, you need to press this down and then pop the knife in the rest of the way. So that's kind of neat. One other thing I'll say is that you can use all of these tools with the handle locked back down. It becomes a little more complicated to lock it down when you've got something hanging off the back of it there, but once you do this, these tools are actually surprisingly ergonomic. This guy fills the hand relatively well, and so as far as, knives on multi-tools go, this feels pretty good. I'll say that, just because of the shape of it overall. And again, because it's not only locking here, but it's locking with this, these cannot close on your hand. So that's kind of neat, I gotta say. The price on this guy is A-okay. You're looking at $43, which is, fine for what you're getting here. It is relatively small to carry. I pointed that out already, but it's nice, especially relative to like your Leatherman Wave. Here, I'll show you the two of them next to each other. The Wave you can get a pocket clip for, and the Wave just, for whatever reason, feels like it carries bigger. It's a little bit thicker, it's a little bit burlier, and the way that the pocket clip is done is not nearly as nice. There's a fair amount hanging out to the side of the clip. Not a big fan there. The pliers are sprung. Unlike on a lot of multi-tools, if you put the pliers together and then release, that little spring bar there pushes them back open, as opposed to on something like your Leatherman Wave, where these pliers are completely you have to do all of the plier movement yourself. So you're using kind of a three-finger trick here. Not the end of the world, but it's something. Weight-wise, this guy isn't so bad. I mean, sure, it's not the lightest thing ever, but it'll do the trick. Here we go. Drop it down there. That's 6 ounces. That's a fair amount, but, you know, it's a little bit lighter, actually significantly lighter than your Leatherman Wave here, so not a terrible thing, and not so bad in the pocket. This is heavy pocket knife sort of weight rather than, oh my god, what am I doing with my life sort of weight. So that's good. And then finally, this is a very one-hand friendly tool. You can pop it open with one hand, and, you know, unfortunately, you're going to have more trouble getting to the blade or something, but if you just need the pliers, you can get them open with one hand, and then by using some other surface, maybe your leg or the back of your pants, you can kind of, as I screw this up, you can close the pliers again. So you just press down this button and then kind of press against your hand, your something. Or really, the other approach is to press it down with your finger and then there you go. So you can do everything you need to one-handed. Trust me, I can do it way better with my leg than my arm, but I can't put my leg on the table. So that's life. Anyways, that's the good. This is a fairly one-hand friendly tool, particularly for the pliers. Second, it's not an incredibly heavy tool. The pliers are sprung, which can be very nice. It's smallish to carry. The price is fine. The tools are actually kind of ergonomic if you lock the handle down. They all lock. They sell parts, and it comes with the pocket clip included. Let's talk about what's great about this tool. I'll be honest here, the great thing about this is just that Switchplier gimmick. It is a lot of fun to just, pow, man, you've got a pliers. It's silly, it's absolutely silly, but it is really neat, and every time I do it, it makes me smile just a little bit. The getting it back to that position isn't quite as fun, but that's really, really neat, and especially for somebody seeing it for the first time, you're like, are you a wizard? No, I just own a SOG Switchplier. So that's what's great about this guy, that little gimmick. That's really all. Let's go on ahead and talk about what's bad. So on the bad side, relative to a lot of multi-tools, the pliers on this guy just don't feel all that smooth. There's kind of a level of resistance where it takes a little more, and a little less, and a little more. It's not the end of the world, but it feels a little bit unpredictable, and especially when you're letting the spring off, I don't know. I'm not a big fan of the smoothness of these pliers. I've done some lubrication and some cleaning overall, but I'm just still not impressed with that. It's not the end of the world, and it might be due to this spring mechanism, which is a little metal rod gliding against metal with variable geometry, but I still wish that were a little smoother. But $40, whatever. Next thing, what the heck is this second tool here in the mix? See if I can get to it. What the heck is this thing? Seriously, it's like it's a polygon, basically, is the nearest I can come for. If you look on the SOG website for this tool, they don't even label what this is. Maybe it's attempting to be an awl? Maybe it's a Medford knife? I just don't know what's going on with this knife. Or whatever the heck it is. I don't get it. It's too thick to be a pry bar. It's too thick to be an awl. Whatever. I don't know what that is, and it's weird to me, and I'm scared of it, and I'm scared in general, so yeah, that's a problem. Next thing for me, the knife on this guy is halfway serrated. If you take a look at it, about half of the blade, even slightly more than that, is serrations. And unfortunately, the part that's serrated is the part that's closest to the knife. And this is going to be okay if you're using the knife over a long time without sharpening it, because serrated edges cut longer, just because you can use them to rip and tear. But I don't tend to like serrated knives, and, you know, the fact that you only have one knife option and it's mostly serrated doesn't bring me any joy here. Next issue with this guy is that none of the tools are externally accessible, so when you have this guy just in this format, the only thing that you can get to, I guess, are the rulers that are printed under the top here. Everything else, you need to pop the pliers open and then reach inside here, which is very much a two-hand affair. If you compare that to, for instance, your Leatherman Wave here, which is kind of my multi-tool of choice, it's very easy using just one hand to get to 4 of your main tools. And so that's kind of a beautiful thing. You don't need to fully unlock everything in order to get to, say, your serrated blade. That's a nicety for me. So that bugs me Well, it bugs me more than a little bit here. Then finally, I can't really attest to this because I haven't carried and used this for 6 months, years, whatever, but I've heard of some pretty extreme issues with durability on review forums and other websites. People talking about things like the handles bending entirely, to the extent where SOG actually sells replacement handles on this side, and, pliers bending and breaking off. So that's something you got to take with a bit of a grain of salt, but at the same time, when you see a very strong pattern of people reporting the same things over and over again, there's probably something to it. So this probably isn't the most durable tool on the face of God's green earth. So there you go. That's what's bad about this guy. There was some pretty strong suggestions of durability issues. The tools are not externally accessible except the pliers. The knife is half serrated, the polygon tool makes no sense and scares me, and the pliers are not really as smooth as they should be on a tool where the pliers are kind of the main draw. Let's talk about the ugly. Okay, so on the ugly front, first off, this tool is really meant to be pliers above anything else. That's kind of the shtick. But the thing is, these pliers have a relatively narrow range. The size of thing that they can grab is relatively small. You can see that, practically speaking, in terms of maximum extent, you're grabbing this is about the same on your Leatherman Squirt P4 here. Slightly larger on your Leatherman Juice CS4, and if you compare it with the Leatherman Wave, which is a larger tool still, you have a huge difference in overall aperture of your pliers, which means you can only grab things of a certain size with this. It's not the end of the world. By and large, the things I've needed to grab in the last, month or so haven't been bigger than this, but it seems a little weird for me that with this being a very pliers-centric tool, that they skipped that little step there, and that they made it as narrow as they did. Next issue, this guy is very capable of opening up in your pocket, because this is your pocket clip here, and this is the button that deploys the switch plier. And so it's very possible, as this is just clipped in, if you bend the wrong way, that suddenly it's attempting to open in your pocket. This will probably get snagged on the hem of your pocket. Maybe it'll pop all the way out. But either way, it's not a great experience for whatever else is in your pocket. And abruptly, you have to readjust yourself in kind of an odd way. So I'm not a big fan of the fact that there's no safety. I don't know how they would do it even. And in an ideal world, the fact that you've got pocket fabric in here would prevent this little thing from going all the way out. But if you're wearing especially thinner pants, you're going to have yourself a bad time there. And then finally, on the on the ugly side, the blade on this guy is a 420 steel. That's all the detail they give to it. It's not 420 HC, it's just 420. And they give no discussion of the overall hardness of it. It could be okay at the very best. But the thing is, it's 2017. I feel like we can definitely do better than this. Even the most basic of blade steels in the multi-tools now are surpassing that, like 154 cm, something along those lines. The fact that they're putting blade steels in here that are really going to go dull relatively quickly is pretty unimpressive to me. The multi-tool manufacturers are really behind in the steel game. I'm not saying you need super high-end knife steels for this, but they got to do better than this. And so that's the final bit of ugly, that you've got your 420 blade steel in here when really? So, like I said, that's the ugly. The blade steel, it opens in your pocket with very little provocation, and the plier jaws are kind of weirdly narrow for something that's designed to be a set of pliers. See how it accidentally closed there instead of allowing me to pinch with the pliers? Yeah, that happens sometimes too. So anyways, let's jump into the final conclusions here. This tool is honestly more fun than it is practical. I love hitting the button, don't get me wrong, that's a joy. There is very much an entertainment to be found in the Switchplier little gimmick thing, but that's kind of what it is at the end of the day. It is a gimmick. Because, sure, the first 150 times you do this and suddenly have pliers in your hand, it's kind of neat. But after a while, the tool should just disappear, and it just becomes a set of pliers that you're using, or a knife, or a screwdriver, etc. The thing is, there were a lot of compromises that have been made here in order to do this little switch plier trick. The very small plier jaw opening. I'm sure there's a term for that, but I don't have it. A lack of externally accessible tools, and overall, I don't know, it's just not so impressive. And so I'll kind of put it in a very very conditional situation. If you need something that clips in your pocket, you only use pliers on a regular basis, you use them on small objects, and you do so one-handed all the time, and only with the ability to use one hand, then this could be a decent enough choice for you. And, at 40 bucks, okay, sure, why not? But that said, there are many, many, many multi-tools in the sea, and this is in zero danger of caking, say, the Leatherman Wave, which is more expensive, but still higher quality out of my pocket here. So, there you go. That's kind of that's the final conclusion. It's kind of fun, but beyond that, I don't really think it's a great choice for your everyday carry multi-tool. All right, hope this has been interesting, that it really switched your opinion on the matter. It was terrible. Mostly, though, that you have yourself an absolutely wonderful rest of your day. Bye now.